about to do a deep dive into the Ethan Klein versus Hassan internet firestorm, where hardcore fans of both are using politics as a mask for vitriolic fandom wars. No, I don't hate myself that much, nor do I hate you that much, random person on the internet watching this. I waste a lot of time, but I'm not gonna waste it watching man-children pretend that performative aggression is all that healthy, helpful, or masculine. Anyone who derisively calls people lil bro is not someone I care to pretend is serious. Sorry. However, in the summer months of 2025, Ethan Klein decided to sue 3 Twitch streamers, people named Denims, Frogan, and CaseyTron, for copyright infringement based on supposed reaction streams they made of a video of his. This is not going to be a deep dive into that case because I am not watching Klein's video or any of the reactions to it. Self-care. But it does bring up topics I find very interesting: copyright, fair use, and reaction videos. 1. Copyright. Before we can talk about reaction videos and fair use, first we need to go over why copyright even matters. I know the based leftist thing to do would be to write off the very concept of intellectual property. Copyright law is bad and so therefore violating it is morally fine. There's no actual theft going on. Copyright is an odious strangling arm of capitalism that only aligns with the rich, powerful, elite media moguls and media companies. Occasionally over on the various socialism or communism subreddits, I've seen people argue that the abolishment of copyright is good and fine because artistic work isn't work in the first place. It's a hobby. Unfortunately, I don't buy those arguments and I largely find them idiotic. I'm so sorry if you believe in them. I don't think you're an idiot. I just think you don't understand art or the world of art. HBomberGuy has a video essay, one of the most highly regarded YouTube video essays of recent years, talking about plagiarism. In it, he discusses a YouTuber named James Somerton. Somerton had a habit of lifting his scripts from various articles, essays, and books written by others, whilst passing said writing off as his own. Many times, Somerton would not credit the writers he stole from. By stealing their writing, he stole their labor. Somerton's channel was monetized, and he was making money off the backs of people whom he was neither crediting nor paying. That is capitalist exploitation. Without copyright protections, there would be no legal recourse for something like this. You would have to rely on public pressure campaigns and hope the person doing the stealing has enough of a conscience to not turn around and use this as a springboard into populist grifting, stubbornly continuing to steal, defiantly doing so, making it a part of their brand. If you don't believe that writing is a form of labor, then I'm begging you to join us in the 21st century, where most of us recognize that labor is not just physical task work that's coded as stereotypically masculine. It's not just working in a factory. Speaking of writing, most people who are curious about the world of publishing, and especially traditional publishing, will end up reading about what literary agents can do for you. For instance, they can make sure you don't hand a publishing house the actual copyright to your works. The Revolutionary Communist Party is incorrect when they write in an article, for example, authors often sign over their copyright to publishing firms in return for publication, distribution, and marketing. You are granting them publishing rights. It's a license. You're not signing over your copyright unless you got a bad contract that you didn't read or negotiate. That's why agents are important. One of the reasons it can be good to have an agent is that they can help you handle and sell additional rights for your book. The ones most people will be aware of are adaptational rights, most often film rights. Copyright law confers that right solely to the owner of the original work. This is a right you can grant, sell, or waive. In order to make the Hunger Games movies, Lionsgate had to purchase the film rights from Suzanne Collins. Without copyright, film studios would not have to do that. They could have instead stolen the work and made the movies without crediting or paying her. A lot of the left-wing critique of copyright is about how the rich and powerful, how businesses and capital abuse copyright to hound and silence others. This is a thing that happens. But within a capitalistic system, such as the one we're currently under, abolishing copyright would incentivize a different form of abuse that erases artists and our work, claiming it for their own. But, one might argue, getting rid of copyright would mean those studios could not make money, as pirating would be free, legal, and potentially easy. Money would instead, in those instances, go to those who own theater chains and piracy sites where ads are run. In effect, This would just result in the same thing under new companies. Eventually, those piracy sites and theater chains will just be the movie studios. As well, less films would be made, less people will get paid. The film industry is fucking massive. Most workers in it are not rich by any means. And still, at the end of the day, the original writer whose work was adapted will still have had their labor stolen. Someone else will be making a paycheck off of their effort whilst they earn nothing. Copyright cannot be abolished under a capitalist system. This begs the question, should it be abolished under a communist system? Assuming under this system the creation of art is properly regarded as work, which, it is. Theoretically, actual communism is a worldwide structure wherein money isn't really a thing that matters. So profit-motivated theft and exploitation wouldn't likely exist. There would, though, still need to be some sort of anti-plagiarism law for two purposes: the historical record and scholarship. A vast amount of literary analysis, expand that into whatever field you want, involves analyzing the life of the author, their time, place, thoughts, socioeconomic conditions, physical and mental health, sexuality, and more, their given circumstances, if you will, to put it in acting terms. These are all relevant to certain forms of dissection and study. In order to do those forms, the original author or authors would have to remain credited. This requires an anti-plagiarism law. This law would enforce crediting for reproductions, quotations, and adaptations. This is a form of a copyright law, though it is fundamentally different from our current conception and ultimately isn't relevant because we're not under communism, we're not under socialism, and there's not about to be a worldwide communist revolution. Sorry. This might come across like a pure defense, perhaps, from selfish motivation as I'm an artist, of the current copyright system. It's true, I don't want my labor stolen, and I'm not a communist, but I do agree that our current system can use some fixing. A decent chunk of my video about Luigi Mangioni's alleged assassination of Brian Thompson is dedicated to changes I think would be worthwhile to pursue in the American healthcare system. One specific area is the abuse of patent laws and exclusivity periods when it comes to drug manufacturing and the creation of generic medication. While I would personally like the patent period to be reduced for medication, especially life-saving medication, at the very least, it seems worthwhile to strictly enforce the ends of those periods without granted extensions, something that does not currently happen. That would be a revamping of the intellectual property rights in this country. In the music world here in the US, with music compositions, there's a thing called a compulsory mechanical license. In part, what this does is it allows anyone to make and sell covers of a song so long as they provide notice, credit, and the mandatory payment, including a set royalty amount. This is not permission to adapt the song into a new work or, say, place it in a movie or a jukebox musical. They're not synchro rights. These payments go to the owners of the copyright for the music and the lyrics. It doesn't have anything to do with the masters of a recording, so like if you do a Taylor Swift cover, she's going to get paid as a songwriter, but not as the owner of her own masters. I think this is intriguing to think about in terms of other art forms and copyright in general. I think the closest analog and most likely place for this to happen next would be in my world, theater. You can conceptualize plays and musicals as the underlying song composition and productions as covers. A mechanical song license does not grant you the right to really alter the melody. Likewise, a compulsory theater license would not grant permission for script alterations. One thing that this would do is it would open up licensing for shows that are on Broadway, especially long-running shows, further opening up the world of theater. It would also stop, say, the state of Samuel Beckett shutting down a production of Waiting for Godot because it has women in it. I dislike Beckett and his entire ethos a lot. I don't like playwrights like him, and I don't believe licensing companies should have any control over casting. I expect this idea would get pushback from the licensing companies as they would potentially be changed into publishing houses that deal with distributing print and digital copies of scripts and scores. Oh well. What if we expanded this even further, though? What if there was such a thing as a compulsory adaptational license, a derivative work license? For a combination of a flat fee, a royalty percentage on the derivative work, and proper noticeable credit, anyone could make adaptation. Depending on the original nominative fee, this would open up the world of adaptations to those with less capital to spend in massive rights battles. Perhaps this is introduced with a sort of exclusivity period on adaptation rights for 10 to 20 years, and then the compulsory licensing would kick in. This would also mean if someone does an adaptation that you don't like, you don't have to wait forever for them to no longer have the rights. You can just get the rights and do your own version. There are some potential pitfalls for this idea, though, which, yeah, I have thought about. The first being that if anyone can adapt works, film studios and the like may be less likely to want to adapt works outside the public domain, as they would not have exclusivity. On the other hand, this would mean that when a derivative project falls through at one company, rather than being dead, another company might decide to pick it up without having to buy out the original contract or wait for the rights to revert back to the original author. Regardless, this could result in fewer big-budget adaptations. Another risk is that this would result in defamatory or offensive adaptations, where an author's work might be used, for instance, to push racism when that message is not present in the original. One who only engages with derivative work might assume the original work and author carry the same views. Perhaps expanded compulsory licensing wouldn't work. People more versed in the law are better equipped to pontificate on that and its potential ramifications than I am. I'm just a random weirdo art kid on the internet. But that is the sort of middle ground that I envision. Another issue with copyright lies in its duration. The life of the author plus 70 years is the current going rate in the United States, last I checked at least. Assuming one lives a long life, this is practically 2 lifetimes. Off the top of my head, I would prefer something more akin to 90 years post-publication, or life of the author plus 30 years, whichever occurs first or applies, because, there are works that never get published. Plenty of people would argue it should be even shorter, maybe some arguing as little as 20 years post-publication. Personally, I think an author should retain their rights for the duration of their life at the least. Claims of copyright infringement are also used by bad actors in order to shut down competition in the market and silence criticism. Lindsay Ellis's 2 videos about the Omegaverse, the first about an abusive copyright case in the publishing world and the second about an attempt to shut down her original video, are excellent examples of this that are entertaining and easily digestible, like Good Prey and Fork. I'm so sorry. These sorts of abuses often come through DMCA takedown requests. DMCA, if you don't know, stands for the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. This is a useful and important law that some people take advantage of in order to file false claims. Hopefully there's some team over at the ACLU looking into ways to manage this while balancing the good that the law does for legitimate claims. See, I'm capable of both critiquing and embracing copyright. Regardless of your moral or political stances on it, though, it exists and it's here to stay for the foreseeable future. Copyright can be a very complicated, convoluted aspect of the law. If there's one way to confuse people even more about it, it's by introducing fair use. 2, fair use. I really love fair use. I mean, just the level of trust involved alone. There's something so romantic to me about that, like roll over in the middle of the night and... I was thinking about free use. Fair use is a defense against copyright infringement. You've probably heard a lot about it over the years. Everyone and the reanimated corpse of their great-grandfather puts a fair use disclaimer in their video descriptions. From video essayists to reaction content creators to fandom kids who put together clip compilations, everyone claims fair use. But what makes something fair use? If you go by most people's assumptions, it would be having a transformative nature. The US government's copyright webpage emphasizes this, saying, additionally, transformative uses are more likely to be considered fair. Transformative uses are those that add something new, with a further purpose or different character, and do not substitute for the original use of the work. Transformative works are often contrasted against derivative works. That presents a bit of an issue. United States copyright law defines a derivative work as a work based upon one or more pre-existing works, such as a translation, musical arrangement, dramatization, fictionalization, motion picture version, sound recording, art reproduction, abridgment, condensation, or any other form in which a work may be recast, transformed, or adapted. Well, shit, there's that word transformed. And it also kind of implies all those YouTube videos where people just summarize things are copyright infringement. Perhaps it's best to consider transformative work not as separate from derivative work, but as a subcategory, which can involve works that don't amount to illegal copyright infringement. Saying something is transformative is not enough to determine fair use. Otherwise, plenty of adaptations, especially loose adaptations, would suddenly be fair use. Stephen Carlyle writes of the SCOTUS case Andy Warhol Foundation v. Goldsmith, but here, finally, the court explicitly recognizes the danger that transformative use will make the right to prepare derivative works irrelevant and unenforceable. In other words, we know that that isn't the case because adaptational rights are part of the copyright. And so adaptations run afoul of number 4 on the checklist. Oh, that's right, there's a checklist. When courts are evaluating whether or not something qualifies as fair use, they weigh 4 broad factors of unequal weight. Quoting U.S. copyright law once more, those 4 factors courts must consider are: 1. The purpose and character of the use, including whether such use is of a commercial nature or is for non-profit educational purposes. 2. The nature of the copyrighted work. 3. The amount and substantiality of the portion used in relation to the copyrighted work as a whole. And 4. The effect of the use upon the potential market for or value of the copyrighted work. Criticism in scholarly research qualifies being fair use. The transformative aspect of a usage is part of that first examined factor. You can combine criticism and transformation to arrive at parody, a protected form of speech under free use laws. People seem to work under the impression that whether or not something is for profit determines if it's fair use. That's not so. It's one thing that can be weighed. Something being commercial doesn't mean it fails the Factor 1 examination, nor does it being non-commercial mean it automatically passes. Factor 2 is pretty much asking how creative the original work was. Gretchen L. Casey writes, though, that the second factor is rarely determinative in a fair use inquiry. 3 is rather interesting. How much of the original are you making use of? Do you use the soul of the original work? Sometimes you'll see this confuse people, but my video was a lot longer than the amount of the original work that I used. But it's not about the percentage of the original and the derivative work. Kevin Toe writes, the amount of the copyrighted work used is not compared to the length of the reaction video or stream, but rather to the proportion of the original copyrighted work. Numero quattro is why adaptations don't qualify as transformative free use. Adaptive rights are one of the potential markets for a work. A novelization of a film isn't fair use, as that represents stolen market space from the original. This is also why most, though I'd argue not all, fan fiction is technically copyright infringement. Literary adaptations, even loose adaptations like an alternate universe fics, are still adaptations. This is true even when the original is also a literary work that would obviously not choose to adapt itself in the way of the fanfic writer. I did say I wouldn't argue all fanfic is copyright infringement, nor honestly would I suggest that most copyright holders should go after fanfic creators. That's a waste of time, money, and effort, and it'll sour your image, probably quite rightfully. Regardless, some fanfic is parody. I think erotic parody is really interesting to think about. When we think of parody, we typically think of ha-ha funny times, but that's not necessarily true. Humor is of course subjective, so it's not really a proper mode to judge legality. Maybe it's better to think of parody as that which criticizes or comments on by using the original. Scary Movie largely uses the plot of I Know What You Did Last Summer to comment on teen slashers such as that film and how ridiculous they are. It's funny, sure, and a lot of the humor comes from the fact that it is criticism. Critique is kind of funny. Erotic parody can also be quite funny. In part, this is because erotic acting often is what it is, but the commentary on sexual tension and eroticism in a work clashing with what we know of the original is a sort of joke. It's important to note, though, that erotic parody is not the same thing as erotic adaptations, which would not be fair use. Parody, just like fair use and copyright, is fairly complicated. A work might seem to be fair use based on one factor and not based on 2, and neither is nor isn't on the last of the 4. In that case, it might be copyright infringement. You could be doing the math and get confused on that. If it's 2 to 1 to 1, shouldn't it be determined as infringement? But don't forget that not all four weigh the same, so yeah. A lot of entertainment lawyers are laser focused on copyright law because it is complicated, and these cases are mostly ruled on an individual basis, so you have to know how to argue your case in court. You know, this is a lot drier than my normal videos. It isn't even about a specific piece of art. Jesus. You know, call me Humpty Dumpty because I fell off. 3. Reaction videos. If you make a Humpty Dumpty joke on vaguely left-wing video essay tube, are people going to automatically start thinking of you as an egg? Am I about to get transvestigated? When I make videos making fun of or critiquing conservatives, I tend to get at least one guy in my comments going off about how I'm a low testosterone trans guy who will always be a girl no matter how hard I try. I wouldn't really be all that surprised if my testosterone levels are low, because like I don't understand the aggression a lot of my fellow cis guys like to display all the time. I just simply don't get it. But also, who cares? I'm a sleepy good boy who constantly gets described as sweet, and I'll take that any day. Reaction videos are really interesting. I have a Quick Bites video about them somewhere. There's a chance it's public when this comes out, or that it's not. Could just be for patrons and channel members. Join now. A proper YouTuber would check on that, but I'm not a prim and proper boy. I wonder out loud if the reason so many people like reaction videos is because our society, increasingly online and physically distant in our socialization, still craves that wonderful connection of sharing a piece of art you either love or hate with someone else. You want to glance over, see them smile at the climax. You smirk when their eyes widen at a key change. You laugh when they get annoyed by the most disappointing plot twist of all time. Bad movies are so good. There's something wonderful about sharing art with someone. It's one of my favorite parts about being in a relationship. Reaction content is also weird. It's a form of criticism. It's seen as authentic, though a lot of people play it up for the camera. It can be validating. It can be frustrating. It's a reminder of the subjectivity of art, which is a good thing. People need to be reminded of that. It can also just be some guy stealing the hard work of others. Now, of course, I occasionally partake in the React Reefer. I get lost in that lavender HT haze. I go up to the internet bartender and I say, "Hey man, can I get a deluxe?" Yeah, make it a deluxe. Pop in a ciggy and get some Reacts by Ash. You know how it is. I am a lame person, so I do lame things. Oh well. Like, watch people I don't know listen to albums I've already listened to. Call me a board game collector who just finished a yard sale because I kind of already gave away the game, didn't I? I called reaction content a form of criticism. Criticism is a protected usage of copyrighted material. It satisfies the transformative issue in Factor 1 of fair use, and it tends to be that simple. Oh, come on. The last section of this video was too goddamn annoying for either of us to come away thinking that things are that simple when it comes to copyright law. Let's think about an absurd hypothetical. A reaction YouTuber reacts to a film. They have their little face up in the corner. The majority of the work is their original work. They play, you watch their facial expressions, how they breathe, how invested they appear, how quickly they drink their water or pop in their popcorn. The credits roll. Only then do they start to speak and offer their thoughts verbally. Is this fair use? No. It's a watch party and pretty clearly copyright infringement. The mere act of criticism at some point does not make the whole transformative or an instance of fair use. It's a factor that goes into it. When YouTubers like Jenny Nicholson, Aleezy Easy, or Reads with Rachel perform readings of the books that they are commenting on, the vast majority of the passages they read lead directly into jokes, commentary, and or criticism. They do not read and keep every single word of the books in the video. Their videos are not annotated audiobooks. They are pieces of criticism. I started this video briefly touching on the Ethan Klein copyright infringement lawsuits. Those aren't the first time he's gone to court over reaction content and free use. Back in 2017, Klein himself was being sued for a reaction video he uploaded to YouTube. A federal judge determined that Klein's video was a pretty cut and dry example of using parts of a work in order to criticize said work. Annie Chang points out, though, that this case did not determine that all reaction content is fair use. That Gretchen L. Casey article says of this original Klein case, as asserted by the Hosenzade court, not all reaction videos constitute free use. However, the court did imply that the format that is arguably the most popular, the one employed by both the Kleins and the Fine brothers, which intersperses clips of another's work along with their own or another person's commentary, hereinafter the critical reaction video, may be considered as a parody, which has an obvious claim to transformative value. I went and watched that original H3H3 video, even though I never wanted to watch any of their videos. The one that inspired this Yeoden lawsuit, and came to the enlightened determination, even though the court wasn't brave enough to say it. I don't understand people, like, at all. This has like 8 million views, and I cannot tell you why. Was 2017 that boring, or am I that out of touch with the average human? It's probably the latter. Klein's video did somewhat feel like a video essay might, similar in tone to a Your Movie Sucks video, like the ones YMS made about Darman. It's criticism. It's weak criticism, sure. I suppose reactions tend toward being the less accomplished or less rigorous sibling of the essay. Casey was right, though. The video was edited so it would show a clip of the original work and then a clip of the Kleins, wherein they added commentary criticism or what passed for humor in 2017. They did not talk on top of an unending stream of the original like a director's commentary might do. They didn't sit for long periods without commentary or criticism, though they did manage to go the whole video without being funny. I guess that's an accomplishment. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm being a little bit mean. My apologies. Back to sweet Jer Bear mode. I want to present 2 hypotheticals of a reaction content creator uploading the entirety of another person's work. Scenario 1. Shoshana Bean sings her ass off while covering Ed Sheeran's Make It Rain. A vocal coach reacts to this performance. During this, the coach regularly pauses the video to talk about vocal placement, vowel shapes, and various other singing techniques employed by Shoshana. How much did her jaw drop? She talks about musicality and stage presence. She'll replay moments to emphasize the vocal concept she was just talking about. Once the performance is done, this vocal coach provides a bit more commentary both on the performance itself and how her viewers might apply some of Shoshana's performance choices to their own vocal journey and musicality. Scenario 2. YouTube video essayist and professional deleter of tweets ContraPoints uploads a video examining the concept of envy and how it intersects with morality, justice, and political expression. A left-leaning streamer decides to watch and react to it on stream. He spends large sections of the video not on camera. You watch an empty chair watch a video while the chat chats and the streamer does whatever it is he does in a different room. When he comes back, he doesn't go back to watch and commentate. He keeps going from wherever it is when he gets there. What's the difference here? Is there one? I would argue the second scenario, at the very least, has segments that qualify as copyright infringement. This is a problem with reaction streamers versus reaction video makers. The folk wisdom in writing spaces I roll in is that if you're going to make use of someone else's copyrighted work, your best bet is to use the minimum amount necessary to make your point. If someone is critiquing the end line rhyme structure of a song's chorus, quoting the end words or rhyming phrases is all that's necessary. The entire chorus needs not be printed. Most video essayists, the ones who are better at this than me and use beef footage from the films and videos they're talking about, tend to do one of 2 things. They'll either use the same short clips repetitively, or they'll selectively choose snippets that highlight what they're talking about. The reaction stream has no ability to curate its output this way, unless the content reacted to has been curated by someone else. Reaction streams tend to be maximalist. Music reactors will stream entire albums straight through. Some of them will pause each song at points to talk about it. That makes sense. That seems like fair use. Others will listen to the entirety of the song and then speak once it's done. The second, to me, seems like copyright infringement. Fair use criticism requires criticism, but the mere presence of critique is not enough. Long stretches devoid of commentary are not transformative, in my opinion. If you find yourself unable to find things to say, then reactions are not for you. Maybe you have interesting things you want to say afterward. Maybe you make connections once you've digested everything. In that case, you should write essays and reviews. They are a higher art form anyway. Reaction videos serve a social function. They fill a sort of void. There's a sense of community. There can be a lot of joy in seeing someone react to something and have a similar emotional response as you did. It's validating, and that makes the world a little less lonely. God knows we could all deal with some of that. I'm sure the same is true of reaction streams. But if you're going to react, you need to react and not simply steal. And for God's sake, touch some grass. Smoke some while you're at it. Howdy, and thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, share if you're feeling saucy. You can join me over on Patreon if you would like, wherein you'll get these videos and others early. You'll also get to have some fun behind the scenes access to some of my art projects, some more personal vlogging style content, and you'll just get to support me and we'll get to chat about art a whole bunch, which is what I love to do most. You can go over to Amazon Smashwords or wherever you get your ebooks and purchase a copy of my poetry collections, Butterfly Snuff, and A Museum of Art and Eggs, both of which are also available in paperback and hardback. I have a second channel where I'm just reading through a bunch of public domain stuff for the fun of it and through my own work, so you'll get readings of these poetry collections and some short stories and some longer form fiction when I get around to it, and some plays. And I have a third channel where I'm uploading my music and art instead of having it all clog up this channel. So go support those if you feel like it. That content, a lot of it will also be getting uploaded early to Patreon. So if you want all of my stuff in one convenient space, Patreon is the place to go, which would be really cool of you, you know? I hope you have a fantastic day. Do not be rude in the comments. Do not go and harass anybody. And I will see you next time.